Today, we're going to be looking at two of the elements of art, and that is going to be shape and form. We can take any shape, which is two-dimensional, just height and width, and turn it into a form. Today, we're going to be learning about one-point perspective to do that with. And that's where we use a vanishing point and a ruler to create that effect. So, if we were to take a shape like a square is equal on all sides. So I'm going to make mine a 2-inch by 2-inch by 2-inch by 2-inch. I'm making sure that they're going straight up and down the paper. Both of these sides are going straight up and down the paper, and both of these are going straight across. That's important because you don't want to wind up with a square that is like this, because when we get here, we notice that this line was not straight. And then we look up here, and it's not quite 2 inches because it's too much at an angle. You want both lines going straight up and down, and both lines going straight across. Now, to do this, we'll use a vanishing point like I did here to create a house. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my vanishing point, let's put it right here. So I'm going to put a dot right there. I can see that if I was to put a ruler going from here to that dot, and the ruler's touching the dot and the ruler's touching this corner, and I was to draw a very light line going all the way there, and then I was to put the ruler touching this corner and then move it to where the ruler's touching that dot, hold the ruler down using my hand, then I can make it to go to that dot as well. And then the same with this corner. I'm going to make the ruler touch this corner, and I'm going to make the ruler touch that dot. If it's not touching the dot, then it's not going to look right. I want it touching that dot. And I can see that all three of these points converge right here at this dot. This is our vanishing point. Now for the square, all I'd have to do is take this line, which is going straight up and down, and I'm going to scoot it back. And with the ruler still going straight up and down, this is where everyone messes up. They make their ruler go from side to side. So look at where your ruler is on the paper. Is it going at an angle, or is it like the edge of your paper going straight up and down? Because if it's at an angle, then it's going to look weird. It's not going to look right. I want my ruler to be going straight up and down, just like this line here. So my ruler is going straight up and down, and I can even line up the ruler with the edge of the paper at the top so that I can check and make sure that it's going straight up and down. Then you kind of have to just guess where the square is. I could measure it out, but you want this to look kind of square too. Then I want to make sure my paper is going straight across, and I can do that by measuring it on this side of the paper. And it's going straight across my paper. It's not at an angle like this. I want it going straight across. I'm going to put it at the corner of that dot there. Right there. That made a cube. Then all I'd have to do is erase these lines, and I have my cube, which is at the right spot. Now, if I wanted to put a second house behind that to make it look like it had even more depth, all I'd have to do is draw a square behind this house and do the same thing. Today we're just going to be focusing on making one single house. To make the house, all I'd have to do is find the middle of this top line, which it was 2 inches, so 1 inch would be the top, or right in the middle. And then I'm going to draw a line going from the middle up, and I just can decide how tall I want it to be. I'm going to do about right there. And that wasn't quite straight up and down. I need to scoot it over. And then I draw a line from that dot to that corner, and from this dot to that corner. So I've put a triangle on top of this cube. And I can erase everything inside of that triangle. And you can see how I have a triangle, which is a shape. It only has two dimensions. It has width and it has height. On my square, I had width and height, but then when I drew this line going back, I added depth. Now I'm going to draw a line from the top of this triangle to here, and then from the edge of this triangle, I'm going to draw a line going from there. And then if I wanted to draw a line from here to here, I could, but I'd wind up erasing it because it's going to be inside of that triangle. So I'd wind up erasing that corner. So I don't have to do that. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. It's because my ruler's not going to be going straight up and down my paper. Now, I want to mimic this angle. So I have this angle that is right here, and I've got to scoot it back to where it's touching this corner. And I'm going to mimic this angle of the front of the house. I'm going to mimic at the back of the house. Then I can erase everything inside here. Just like that. And I can erase my guidelines going back to my 1 point. This is my vanishing point. So everything vanishes to this point. So if I had a house back here, it would be really tiny, and it would still vanish to that point there. And if I had a house right here in the middle, it would, now this isn't a very good house because I didn't draw it out, but it would still vanish to that point there. And it'd be a little bit smaller than this house. So it gives you the right perspective. We've talked about perspective a little bit, and it's the size of things. And in comparison to this house, this one that's a little bit further back is the right perspective. And I can tell that because I use my 1 point perspective and my vanishing point to determine that. Now, we can decorate the house here if we wanted to. You can see here in this picture, I gave it this half circle window and 2 doors. I even put a fence around it, and I did this one in pen, so you can still see my vanishing lines. I couldn't erase it. But we can put in a door on one side if you want, and a window on the other side. And we could even put lines going down here if we wanted to add some lines. You can decide how you want your house to look, and we can even add trees. Trees, in comparison, might be larger than the house, and it might cover up some of the tree because the house might be overlapping with it. You can also use overlapping to add depth to a picture. But today we're focusing on making shapes into forms. Our shape that we turned into a form today was a triangle because it only had length and height at first, but then we added depth by giving it these lines that go backwards. And we took the shape of a square and we added depth by making it go backwards. Okay, we're going to see if you can do this today as well. Before we do this though, let's talk a little bit more about the horizon line and a few more things that we might find in math. So in art, we call the horizon line where the sun comes up, which is right here along our vanishing point. So in this picture, my horizon line would be right here. You can see I've already marked the horizon line here, and both of these squares are going to the same vanishing point. That allows me to give something that might look like possibly a street. If I want it to look like a street, you can see here in this picture, I've added a street. Or if you have buildings on both sides going to your 1 point, this would be my vanishing point that I had. This is my horizon line. These are my buildings, and this is my street that is closing down. Now let's go back to the math portion. In math, the front of the square is called the face, to where each of the straight lines is called an edge, and each of the corners is called a vertex. And we've added these two-dimensional shapes and given it another edge going backwards, and here we can see 3 more vertices that's going back to my vanishing point. And here is my horizon line. We can see that I've put in a horizon line in this picture where the grass would end and the sun comes up and you'd see blue sky. let me give you one more example of the way you could take shapes like these rectangles and give them depth to add a third dimension to your pictures. So once again, the front of the square is called the face, the straight lines are called edges, the corners are called vertex, and we've brought everything to a vanishing point. Now, in high school, we're not going to deal with it today, but in high school, you can even have a light source, and you can figure out where your light source would be depending on vanishing points and light source lines as well. So you can see here's my light source, my sun, and it's hitting this point, and it comes down here and creates a shadow. And you can figure out where the brightest parts of your form needs to be and your darkest point. But we're not going to worry about that quite yet. You can learn that in high school or possibly even middle school. Okay, this is our lesson on depth and how we can turn two-dimensional shapes into three-dimensional forms. So shapes and forms. And then we even talked a little bit about our principles of design and that we talked about proportion. Okay, I hope you have fun turning shapes into forms.